Ladies and gentlemen, I am Andrew Huberman, and I want you to enjoy your life. If you truly want a positive change in your life, don't just listen, take action. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you can receive more inspiring messages. For most of my life, I believed that success was just about working harder, sleeping less, and grinding endlessly. But science taught me something very different. There's one simple brain exercise that absolutely changed the way I think, perform, and live. It rewired my mind, it strengthened my focus, and honestly transformed my entire experience of life. Today, I'm going to share it with you because if you apply this, it could change your life too. And the best part, you don't need any expensive equipment. You don't need a gym membership. All you need is 5 minutes of pure intention. When we think about getting better at anything, whether it's learning a new skill, overcoming fear, or achieving a major goal, we usually imagine physical practice or repetition as the main ingredient. But what neuroscience shows is that the brain doesn't exclusively rely on physical experiences to create change. In fact, one of the most powerful tools we have is something called mental rehearsal. Mental rehearsal refers to vividly imagining an action, behavior, or outcome without physically performing it. It sounds simple, but the impact it has on the brain is profound. Every time you imagine yourself doing something successfully, specific groups of neurons in your brain fire in patterns that are nearly identical to when you physically perform the same action. These neurons wire together through a principle called Hebbian plasticity, often summarized as neurons that fire together wire together. Over time, repeated mental rehearsal strengthens the synaptic connections between these neurons, effectively building new, stronger neural circuits. This means that even without moving a muscle, your brain is laying down the architecture for success. It's preparing your body and mind to execute the task more efficiently when you actually do it. What's even more fascinating is that the more detailed and sensory rich the visualization is, the stronger the effect becomes. If you simply think about an outcome in a vague way, the brain doesn't respond much. But when you close your eyes and imagine the colors, the sounds, the emotions, the environment, all the small details, your brain treats the mental event almost like a real one. In studies involving athletes, musicians, and even patients recovering from injuries, those who practice vivid mental rehearsal demonstrated measurable improvements in performance, coordination, and even healing rates compared to those who relied only on physical practice. One crucial point to understand is that mental rehearsal isn't about positive thinking or wishful daydreaming. It's about intentional, structured practice at the level of the brain's hardware. By visualizing a process repeatedly, you are essentially programming your nervous system to recognize and prefer certain patterns over others. You're teaching your brain that these actions are familiar, safe, and achievable. As a result, when you step into real-world situations, whether it's a job interview, a difficult conversation, or a high-stakes competition, your mind already knows how to act. You respond with more confidence, more precision, and less hesitation because your neural circuits have been trained to do so. Research also shows that mental rehearsal can prevent performance deterioration under stress. When the stakes are high, people often choke not because they lack skill, but because stress disrupts the smooth flow of neural activity. Practicing mentally beforehand acts as a buffer. It stabilizes the circuits so that even under pressure, your brain can access the trained responses automatically. Now, this is why elite athletes, military, special forces, and top performers across industries integrate mental rehearsal into their training regimens. It's not extra, it's essential. By engaging the brain directly through visualization, you are working with the system that controls all behavior at the most fundamental level. The prefrontal cortex, located right behind your forehead, is one of the most advanced and powerful parts of the human brain. It's responsible for focus, decision-making, impulse control, planning, and our ability to delay gratification. In many ways, the quality of your life depends on the strength and efficiency of your prefrontal cortex. Yet most people unknowingly weaken this vital brain region by constant distractions, multitasking, and reactive behavior. What science tells us is that deliberate mental practices like visualization and focused attention can directly strengthen the circuits of the prefrontal cortex, making it more resilient, sharper, and better at controlling behavior. When you engage in structured mental rehearsal, you are not just dreaming or daydreaming. You are activating the prefrontal cortex in a specific, goal-directed manner. You are teaching it to hold an image, to resist distractions, and to persist in a certain cognitive task without giving up. This is exercise for the brain. Just as lifting weights builds muscle, sustained mental focus builds the density and connectivity of neurons in the prefrontal cortex. Neuroimaging studies show that people who engage in daily focused mental exercises actually have thicker, more robust prefrontal cortices compared to those who do not. A stronger prefrontal cortex translates into better emotional regulation, improved ability to prioritize long-term goals over short-term temptations, and greater cognitive endurance. One of the challenges we face today is that our environment is designed to fragment our attention. Notifications, social media, emails, endless to-do lists, they constantly pull our focus in 100 directions. Over time, this wears down the prefrontal cortex's ability to sustain attention on a single task. The neural circuits responsible for deep focus weaken, while the circuits associated with distraction grow stronger. It's like training your brain to be easily pulled away from what matters. Mental rehearsal and visualization, by contrast, reverse this trend. They retrain your brain to lock onto a single goal, to stay immersed in one coherent narrative without succumbing to external noise. Another fascinating aspect is that the prefrontal cortex has the unique ability to suppress automatic responses generated by older, more primitive brain areas such as the amygdala and the limbic system. This suppression is critical when we are trying to resist urges, stay calm under pressure, or make choices that serve our future selves rather than our immediate cravings. Every time you deliberately rehearse a desired behavior, staying composed during conflict, delivering a confident speech, completing a challenging task, you strengthen the prefrontal circuits that inhibit fear, impulsiveness, and procrastination. You are literally wiring yourself to act more thoughtfully, more strategically. And it's important to understand that neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change itself, follows a simple rule. What you use grows. If you use your prefrontal cortex for intentional, disciplined thinking, it becomes stronger. If you neglect it or allow it to be hijacked by constant stimulation and shallow engagement, it weakens. Visualizing success, practicing mental discipline, and focusing on clear goals consistently are not just motivational techniques, they are physical workouts for the brain's command center. And over time, the cumulative effect is transformational. One of the most profound benefits of deliberate mental rehearsal is its ability to reduce stress and anxiety at a biological level. To understand how this works, we need to first understand what happens inside the brain when we experience stress. In moments of uncertainty, challenge, or perceived threat, the amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm system, becomes highly active. It floods the body with signals to prepare for fight, flight, or freeze responses. And while this system is essential for survival, the modern world triggers it far more often than necessary. Public speaking, social interactions, deadlines, and even minor setbacks can activate the amygdala, creating a cascade of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline that leave us feeling overwhelmed and reactive. When mental rehearsal is practiced consistently, it creates a buffer against this cycle. By mentally visualizing a challenging situation and simultaneously imagining yourself navigating it calmly and effectively, you precondition your nervous system to perceive those situations as less threatening. Essentially, you are teaching your amygdala that these scenarios are manageable, familiar, and not life-threatening. Over time, the brain's fear response becomes less sensitive, and the threshold for triggering stress becomes much higher. Scientific studies show that individuals who engage in structured visualization practices display lower baseline levels of cortisol and experience faster recovery from stressful events. Another important mechanism at play involves the connection between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala. These two structures communicate constantly. In highly stressed individuals, the amygdala tends to dominate the conversation, overriding rational thought with emotional reactions. However, when you rehearse calm, controlled responses to potential stressors, you strengthen the top-down regulation from the prefrontal cortex. In simple terms, your thinking brain gains greater influence over your emotional brain. This enhanced control allows you to pause, assess, and respond thoughtfully, even in situations that would previously have triggered anxiety or panic. Mental rehearsal also activates the parasympathetic nervous system, often referred to as the rest and digest system. Unlike the sympathetic nervous system, which accelerates heart rate and prepares the body for action, the parasympathetic system slows things down, promoting relaxation, digestion, and repair. Visualization practices that incorporate deep rhythmic breathing and positive imagery can lead to a measurable increase in parasympathetic tone, which not only makes you feel more relaxed in the moment, but also enhances your overall resilience to future stress. Perhaps one of the most overlooked benefits of mental rehearsal is that it gives you a sense of agency over your mind and body. Anxiety often thrives in uncertainty, the feeling that you are powerless over future outcomes. Visualization interrupts this helplessness by reminding your brain that you have tools, that you have preparation, and that you are capable of influencing events through your choices and behaviors. This shift from helplessness to agency is not just psychological. It rewires the circuits involved in motivation, reward, and executive function, making you more proactive rather than reactive. Instead of fearing upcoming challenges, you begin to see them as opportunities to apply the skills you've mentally rehearsed and mastered. Dopamine is often misunderstood as merely the brain's pleasure chemical, but its primary role is far more nuanced and vital to our daily functioning. It acts as a motivator, a chemical messenger that propels us toward goals, fuels our drive, and reinforces behaviors that lead to rewards. When we engage in mental rehearsal, we tap into this dopaminergic system, effectively priming our brain to pursue and achieve desired outcomes. Mental rehearsal involves vividly imagining the steps and processes required to reach a specific goal. This practice doesn't just prepare us mentally, it stimulates the same neural pathways that are activated during actual performance. By visualizing success, we create a blueprint in our brain, making the real-life execution more familiar and attainable. This process triggers the release of dopamine, reinforcing the behavior and increasing the likelihood of repetition. The mesolimbic pathway, often referred to as the brain's reward circuit, plays a central role in this mechanism. It connects the ventral tegmental area, VTA, to the nucleus accumbens, facilitating the release of dopamine in response to rewarding stimuli. When we mentally simulate achieving a goal, this pathway becomes active, releasing dopamine and reinforcing the neural connections associated with the envisioned success. Moreover, dopamine doesn't just respond to rewards, it also responds to the anticipation of rewards. This anticipatory release is crucial for motivation. By mentally rehearsing a successful outcome, we create a sense of expectation and excitement, which in turn increases dopamine levels. This heightened state of anticipation makes us more likely to engage in behaviors that move us toward our goals. It's important to note that dopamine-driven motivation is not solely about the end result, it's about the journey. The process of working toward a goal, fueled by the anticipation of success, keeps us engaged and persistent. Mental rehearsal enhances this process by continually reinforcing the connection between effort and reward, making the pursuit itself more rewarding. Furthermore, consistent mental rehearsal can lead to long-term changes in the brain's structure and function. Through neuroplasticity, repeated visualization strengthens the neural circuits associated with goal-directed behavior. This means that over time, our brain becomes more efficient at initiating and sustaining actions that align with our objectives. Incorporating mental rehearsal into our daily routine doesn't require extensive time or resources. Even a few minutes of focused visualization each day can have a significant impact. By regularly engaging in this practice, we train our brain to associate specific behaviors with positive outcomes, reinforcing the motivation to act. In essence, mental rehearsal leverages the brain's natural reward system to enhance motivation. By simulating success and reinforcing the pathways associated with goal achievement, we create a self-sustaining cycle of motivation and action. This not only increases our chances of success, but also makes the pursuit of our goals a more engaging and fulfilling experience. One of the biggest challenges people face is the gap between what they intend to do and what they actually do. Every day, millions of people set goals, make promises to themselves, and plan for better habits, yet find themselves falling short when it comes time to act. This is not because they lack desire or intelligence. It's because the brain struggles to translate abstract intentions into real-world behavior without the proper preparation. Mental rehearsal serves as a critical bridge that transforms intention into action by wiring the necessary neural circuits in advance, making behavior feel less forced and more automatic. When you mentally visualize yourself performing a specific behavior, whether it's getting up early to exercise, speaking confidently in a meeting, or remaining calm under pressure, you are rehearsing not just the outcome, but the entire process leading up to it. This process feminist rehearsal is essential. It allows the brain to simulate the sequence of steps, the environment, the potential obstacles, and the internal states you may encounter. The more detailed and realistic the rehearsal, the stronger the activation of the motor cortex, prefrontal cortex, and associated sensory regions that govern real-life behavior. In essence, your brain begins treating the behavior as something familiar, something already experienced, reducing the cognitive load required to execute it when the time comes. Another important mechanism at play involves the basal ganglia, a part of the brain heavily involved in habit formation and action initiation. When behaviors are mentally rehearsed with focus and repetition, the basal ganglia become more efficient at recognizing cues and triggering the appropriate behavioral routines. This shift is what allows new habits to feel natural over time rather than forced. The action is no longer dependent solely on conscious effort. It becomes ingrained as part of your automatic behavioral repertoire. Mental rehearsal also primes the emotional brain, particularly the insular cortex, which is responsible for generating feelings associated with imagined actions. When you visualize achieving a goal, your body can start to feel the pride, satisfaction, and confidence associated with success. This emotional reinforcement plays a vital role in motivating future action. Rather than relying purely on willpower, which is limited and easily depleted, you are building a deep internal drive anchored by positive emotional states. These emotional signals can powerfully tip the balance toward action when your brain weighs the decision to act or delay. Crucially, visualization helps eliminate ambiguity, one of the main reasons people fail to act. When goals are vague and the steps unclear, the brain hesitates, often defaulting to inaction. But when the path has already been mentally walked through, when the steps have been rehearsed and the obstacles pre-experienced, the brain perceives far less uncertainty. With reduced uncertainty comes reduced fear, and with reduced fear comes quicker, more decisive action. The more often you mentally rehearse the behaviors associated with your goals, the more those behaviors become pre-installed scripts ready to be executed with minimal resistance. In doing so, you transform good intentions into tangible results, not through force or struggle, but through systematic, neuroscience-based preparation that makes success the natural next step. The brain is not fixed. It's dynamic, adaptable, and incredibly responsive to the inputs we give it. Mental rehearsal is not just a passive exercise. It's an active, powerful way to shape who we become. Each time you take a few minutes to visualize your goals, to walk through your challenges in your mind, and to see yourself succeeding, you are literally training your nervous system to support you instead of sabotage you. You're giving your brain a clear blueprint of where you want to go and how you want to get there. Over time, these small, deliberate practices accumulate, creating massive shifts in focus, resilience, and performance. It's not magic. It's not luck. It's biology, leveraged in your favor. The beautiful thing about mental rehearsal is that it costs nothing except your time and attention, yet its returns can transform every area of your life. Whether you're seeking better health, stronger relationships, greater career success, or simply more inner peace, the practice remains the same. Train the mind, and the body follows. Train the brain, and the future unfolds. The science is clear. The more intentionally you use your mind today, the more powerfully you change your reality tomorrow. If you found value in today's insights, help this message reach more minds by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Your support fuels the mission to unlock the full potential of the human brain.